Good morning. So today we'll be starting with another topic of your CC12 unit 2, and that basically deals with the following. So we'll be discussing linkage, crossing over, complete and incomplete linkage. We'll move on to measuring recombination frequency and linkage map. Linkage map construction. We'll study interference and coincidence. Then move over to sex linkage in Drosophila and humans. But prior to that, this picture is just a bridge between what we studied in our last unit and we will carry forward our concept through the present unit. Okay. Now, if you remember, we had studied the independent assortment of alleles in our last unit. So this picture is actually relating the behavior between Mendelian genes and chromosomes in meiosis. So it's a relation between Mendelian genes and chromosomes during meiosis. So let us look at this picture. So if you see here, there are two sets of chromosomes. There is one, this saffron color chromosome. This saffron color chromosome, and then we have this blue one. So if you look, the saffron one has a set of capital A alleles and a set of capital B alleles, and the blue one has a set of small a alleles and a set of small b alleles. Now the cell enters meiosis. During meiosis, the two pairs of homologues align in one of the two possible arrangements. So you can see capital A, capital B alignment in this one in a same line, or you can see a capital A, small b alignment in the same line. So the alignment of the chromosome, depending on how it is aligned, plays a role as to how the gametes will be formed. Okay, so as you can see, so we are seeing a capital A, capital B alignment in a straight line in one cell and a capital A, small b alignment in a straight line in another cell. Now comes anaphase. So this is how the cell will now divide. Fine. So if cell division starts, for this alignment, as you can see, capital A, capital B is moving to one pole. Okay, so it is moving to one pole. But for this alignment, as you can see, a capital A and a small b together is moving to one pole. So depending on how the chromosomes are aligned at the metaphase plate, we are seeing two different scenarios. Okay, so as you can see, we are seeing two different scenarios. Now as you see, telophase sets in and cytokinesis proceeds, and we get a cell having a capital A, capital B condition and a cell having a capital A, small b condition. On the other hand, this is another cell having a small a, small b condition and another one having a small a, capital B condition. Okay, so this was meiosis 1. Now when the cells move to meiosis 2, we get from a cell, we get 4 gametes. We know that. Okay, so in case of meiosis 2, from this condition, what are the combinations we get? So this, in case of meiosis 2, this will now divide. We'll get a further division in this manner. Okay, so what will the gametes will get? A capital A, capital B. See, a capital A, capital B. Then again a capital A, capital B, capital A, capital B. A small a, small b, small a, small b. Again a small a, small b. Similarly, if you look into this side, there is division occurring in this manner during meiosis 2, and we are getting capital A, small b, as you can see. Capital A, small b, small a, capital B, small a, capital B. So independent alignment, as you can see, the independent alignment of the two homologous pair of chromosomes at metaphase 1 results in equal frequencies, as you can see here, results in equal frequencies of the 4 meiotic products. Illustrating, so we are getting 4 meiotic products. The products might be different to some extent depending on how the chromosomes were initially aligned in the metaphase 1 plate. Okay, so on that, just a second. So based on that, we can see that the principle of independent assortment has occurred. So as we saw that from the single cell, we are getting, just like in Mendel's condition, Mendel talked about 2 alleles, if you remember, capital R small r and capital Y small y, and we get the independent assortment of the, in this case, the capital A small a and the capital B small b. They are independently assorted to give us 4 gametes. So this is how the independent assortment of Mendelian can be related to meiosis, and this is where we start our present topic. Now let us move to the next slide. This is another example where I have showed you another case of independent assortment. In this case of independent assortment, organism has been, this is the heterozygote. And whenever we cause a heterozygote with a homozygous recessive parents, the cross is referred to as test cross. Okay. Now, if we look into this scenario, what are the possible combination of gametes which can be obtained from this? So one combination, just from this, we are not looking into this, we are now looking into what kind of gametes we will be obtaining from this particular uh, organism. So we will get a capital A, capital B condition. So this is our first gamete. Okay. This we will again get a small b combination. So this is our gamete number 1. So this is our gamete number 2. This is our gamete number 2. We will now get a recombinant product, capital A, small b. So this is gamete number 3. Gamete number 3. And finally, we will get another recombinant product, small a, capital B. This is gamete number 4. Okay. Now, so this is from this particular parent, we are getting these 4 kinds of gametes. If we look into this parent, now let us concentrate into this parent. There are only 2 possible gametes, that there is only one possible gamete that we can get, one form, that is A and B. Because this is a homozygous recessive parent, so whatever the combination is, it will always be a small a and a small b. Now let us consider the individuals thus we will get. So if I remove, just a second. Now if you compare, so this is one individual, when the two gametes fuse, this is one individual. So this is the blue box is one individual. When these 2 gametes fuse, this is another individual. These individuals are known as parentals or non-recombinants. Why are they called non-recombinants? Because if you see one gamete from the heterozygous parent, we are seeing the same combination here. The other one, in the case of case number 2, this is the heterozygous parent. So this is the combination of the 2 alleles. You see it is the same orientation. So these 2 are non-recombinance gametes or non-crossovers. Okay. That is why I have given a blue rectangle around the 2 non-crossover individuals. Now, if we look into the other 2 cases, see, capital A, small b, none of the parent exhibit this allelic combination, none of the parents. So we have a capital A, small b, that is, there has been a crossover at some point. So capital A small b and then small a small b. So we'll be getting a crossover product here. And again, a small a capital B. This is another crossover product. So as you can see, number 3 individual, the third individual, and the fourth individual are actually crossover products. So now let us compare a particular situation. So as I showed you, when we get all the 4 different kinds of individuals in the ratio 1:1:1:1, that is the probability of having all these individuals is same. We can have 25% of this individual, 25% of this individual, 25% of this individual, and 25% of this individual. We will assume that the case of independent assortment has occurred. But if we get a case where there is this gamete, capital A, capital B, we do not get the orange boxes, a case where we will not be getting the orange boxes. We will only get the blue boxes. So we'll get one set of individual this and the other set of individual this. It clearly indicates that somehow no crossover has occurred between capital A small b, or no crossover has occurred between small a and capital B. Thus, we are not getting any crossover products. If this happens, then we have to assume that the two genes in consideration, they are somehow linked. Because they are linked, they are not being able to assort independently. So comes the second concept, complete linkage. Genes in coupling, that is A and B, are coupled. You cannot separate them, and they are not separated during meiosis. They move together. Finally, there might be some other conditions. That is, I have showed you the two extreme conditions. One extreme says that the genes are not at all linked, so they are independently assorted. We are getting all the 5 types. Sorry, we are getting all the 4 types in the ratio 1:1:1:1. The other extreme condition was the genes are linked. Since the genes are linked, we are not getting the crossover products. Now, between these 2 conditions exists a third condition, which is known as linkage with some amount of crossing over. So, we are assuming that the genes are linked, but crossing over is yet occurring. Keep in mind that whenever there is crossing over occurring, then we will get all the 4 sets of individuals I have shown you here. We will get the parentals. These are known as the non-recombinants. From henceforth, we will call this as the non-recombinants, and these are the crossovers. These are known as recombinants. Now, whenever there is incomplete linkage, what happens? The total of the non-crossovers is greater than 50%. It is always greater than the non-crossover products are greater than 50%, and the crossover products are less than 50%. So you can assume here from this condition, what we can see, that there are 3 scenarios that can come up. One is the scenario of independent assortment, where we get all the 4 combinations in the ratio 1:1:1:1. Then comes the other extreme case of complete linkage, where A and B are linked in such a manner that there is no crossover product. So we will get only the upper 2 blue boxes, which will give us the two parents, we'll get only the two parents. So we'll be getting this one as 50% and this one 50%. So the non-recombinants, we'll get only the non-recombinants. If there is linkage with some amount of crossing over, we will get all the four genotypes, but the amount of the non-crossovers, that is that non-recombinants, will always be greater than the amount of the recombinants. So this is something we have to keep in mind when we think of independent assortment, complete linkage and incomplete linkage. Through the next slides, I'll walk you through much detail regarding this. But before that, I want to give you another concept of a genetic map. In this particular arrangement, you can see there are two sets of wild type alleles and there are two sets of mutant alleles. A wild type allele is always written as with a plus sign, as you can see. So W plus is the wild type allele, W is the mutant allele. In many cases, it is also written as plus W, indicating that plus is the wild type and W is the mutant type. Similarly, as you can see here, M is the wild type and this one is mutant. If you look at the particularly this picture, if you look at the, what is this side, left side picture, you can see both the wild type alleles are present in one homologue and both the recessive mutant alleles are present in the other homologue. This arrangement is called coupling or cis configuration. That is, whenever, as you can see, whenever we say a gene is in coupling, you have to assume that both the wild types are in one chromosome, one homologue, and both the mutants are in another homologue. That's the rule. So whenever, as you can see, it's written, as you can see, so whenever we have two wild type alleles or two recessive mutant alleles, so we have one set of wild type alleles in one homologue and the other set of mutant alleles in the other homologue, we call this arrangement as coupling or cis configuration. But similarly, now let us look at this configuration. We have a wild type allele in one homologue for W, and for the M set, we have the wild type allele in the other homologue. This is known as trans configuration, or the arrangement is known as repulsion. So, those two terminology, if you remember, coupling and repulsion. In the previous slide, it was somewhere written that the genes in coupling, it means you have to assume that the dominant alleles are in one chromosome and the recessive alleles are in another chromosome. So that is how during genetic map we use these words. There's another thing that is to be noted here, that genes can be written in this form as I showed, as it has been showed here, or it can be written in this form as I'm showing you right now. This is how also we write in genes, a double slash. For this one, we might write it as W plus M slash W M plus. This is how we may write it, or there is another way of writing it also, plus, that means wild type for both the genes, W M, or in this case we may write it as plus M double slash W plus. So these are the various ways of writing the allelic configuration in two different homologues. So this was the concept of genetic map. And now moving on to the chromosome theory. This was a very famous theory that was put forward by Sutton and Boveri. Independently, they came to this conclusion. So we have Walter Sutton and Theodore Bovary's picture out here. And the theory states that genes are found at specific locations on particular chromosomes. So this, as you can see, genes are found at specific locations on particular chromosomes, and we know them. These locations are known as locus. If you remember, we did Mendel's class. So the locations where genes are found is known as locus, plural loci, and that behavior of chromosomes during meiosis explains why genes are inherited according to Mendelian laws. So when I started today's class, I showed you during meiosis what happens and how the genes get segregated, which bears interesting similarity. Bears an extremely interesting similarity with how the independent assortment of Mendel occurs. So this was a very famous theory, chromosome theory of inheritance, put forward by Walter Sutton and Boveri, and this is another person, Thomas Hunt Morgan. In fact, it was he for the first time was the one through various experiments proposed that for recombination, physical exchange of the two homologues is essential. It was he who proposed it. And he did some very seminal experimental works with Drosophila that we will be studying. It is a part of your syllabus also. So Morgan gave the hint that yes, there is some physical exchange occurring between the chromosomes during the process of recombination. So that was how the chromosome theory of inheritance initially came up because of Sutton and Boveri, and thereafter three important experimental findings, one of Barbara McClintock, one of Thomas Hunt Morgan, and Starr's experiment finally proved that indeed physical exchange, you have studied about chiasma, physical exchange is occurring between the chromosomes during recombination. Now, coming to the chromosomal theory of inheritance, what were the observations that supported the chromosome theory of inheritance? From Mendel, we know that a pair of alleles exists in pairs. Okay, the position where they sit are locus. One allele is obtained from the mother, the other allele is obtained from the father. This is the picture of a pair of homologous chromosome. The position where both the alleles are sitting are known as locus. This is a homologue. Okay. Next, as you can see, so during DNA replication, so they are showing you the cell cycle part. So this is a cell entering cell cycle. So doubling of the DNA content, meiosis 1 segregation, meiosis 2 segregation. This is a very simplified picture, actually showing us the law of segregation through one gene. And now coming to the Mendelian's law of independent assortment, the picture with which I started today. And as you can see, capital A small a, capital B small b. These are the four possible types of gametes that can happen. And depending on how I showed you, depending on how, if capital A, capital B can be present at one side, or capital A, small b can be present on the other side. So the two conditions are shown here. So meiosis 1, meiosis 2, we are getting the four different sets of gametes. So as you can see, the members of the different chromosome pairs are sorted into gametes independently of one another, and meiosis A is sorted independent of B, just like the alleles of different genes in Mendel. And thus, through the chromosomal theory of independence, the law of independent assortment was thus also very well, very clearly explained. And now we move on to some finer details of this independent assortment. But for now, I'll end the class as we have only 4 seconds.